I want to give you a sneak peek of some of the content that we're going to be covering within this course. And if you're new to HTML, don't worry, because we are going to be going through step by step and how all of this code works. And you're going to see how really easy it is to start writing out HTML code. And then as we introduce CSS and we progress through the course, you're going to be amazed at what you can do with just a few lines of code. So these are some of the examples, and of course we've included a lot of source files within this course, so you too can check out these source files, try it out for yourself, work with them on your own systems, and see what you can make them do. So one of the examples here is, this is just a basic HTML page here. We've got our navigation menu, we've brought in an image, we've also got a table down here, so we're going to be covering that off. Also looking at forms. So these are the new HTML5 forms that give you some really neat functionality here where you can do these pop-up colors, we can do date pickers, and of course we've got the standard HTML form content here. So we've got radio buttons, checkboxes, and really quite a lot of stuff that we can do here that we're going to be looking at throughout the course. Then we're going to be looking at overall web page structure and how to bring in just different types of tags and use different types of elements within the page. Over here on the right hand side, so I've got my dev tools opened. We're going to be using Chrome in the course, so heavily using dev tools in order to look at source code and so on, and even make some manipulations and communications back and forth from our code to our browser. So here we've just got some more of the source code that's included, and just going through all of the different ways that we can build out websites. So now we can see that we're starting to transform that code into a navigation menu up here, and then transferring it more into what looks like a website. Then finally finishing off the HTML and CSS, we're going to actually build out a web page just like this. So we've got our HTML structure, and then we've applied CSS to make it look and feel, customizing that look and feel of the website. Then we're also going to start looking at JavaScript, and JavaScript allows us to have that user interaction. So these are very basic pop-up alerts that we can use. They can also prompt for information and send that information back. And then what we can do is we can actually utilize that newly picked up information within our JavaScript and make use of it within our code, so we can actually send stuff back and really do a lot of really neat things. Also looking at the different ways to store values. One of them is going to be arrays, and arrays are really important to understand because arrays have built-in functionality that we can just apply. So here we've got some of the samples where we're doing all kinds of really neat things to the arrays, outputting them as string values, manipulating them, adding, removing, concatenating them together, and going over all of this. So this is just a sampling of what we're going to do with arrays, and of course there's a lot of functionality with arrays. And besides arrays, there's also objects. Now objects are another important way to store data within your JavaScript, and understanding objects really opens up the door to pulling in content like JSON formatted data, which of course we're going to talk about as we progress through the course. And this is just another way of transferring data and making use of that data within our code. So here we've got just examples of functions. So here we're passing local, global values into the functions, and we're outputting some object information and so on. Then looking at how we can access the DOM, so we've got our breakdown of the DOM over here, and we're going to be going through how we can access this information and make changes and updates. So going into the next example here, so now we've got some more interaction that we've added in within this lesson. So we've got the ability to add clickable buttons, and we can see here as we move into this image area, we see that we're getting updates on where our X and Y position is. And then we're also going to be progressing and updating that code, really showing you what can be done and what you can expect within the DOM. And here we've got some more examples, so added functionality to that. We can see that when we get it clicked, we've got the ID showing up here within the console, and this is what we meant by communicating back and forth and sending in information back and forth to the console. And then also we do have the ability to create new elements within our HTML code. We also have how we can look at forms. So we see that we can check to see if form content is filled out within the form fields with JavaScript. We can also do comparisons, so we can see that output is false, and we get some kind of results here. So whenever we click, we get the interaction for the user, and then we've got some calculations that are happening in the back end with JavaScript. The same here, that we're doing calculations and we're calculating the output there as well. So we've got some more information here that it takes in information from our HTML code and makes some kind of calculations. So here we've got A is less than B. So if we update these, if we change A to be larger, we see that A is more than B. So some basic functionality, but this really builds that foundation to build up on it and be able to do some really neat things with your JavaScript code. And that's just some more examples. So as you can see, we've got quite a lot of examples here, and we're also going to be introducing looping. So what loops do is they give us the ability to create some dynamic building of code. And then what we had mentioned earlier is the transfer of data. So this is an example of a JSON file. And then this is an example of bringing in that JSON data. So notice that the URL here is a web URL, and I'm able to bring it into my demo site here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then also communicating back and forth with the server. So here we've got some information that we're sending over to the server, and then the server's picking that up and sending that information back. So that's what that example is. And also bringing in jQuery. So all of that stuff with JavaScript, we're going to show you how to do it a lot easier with jQuery. And jQuery is one of the most popular, if not the most popular, JavaScript libraries out there. And the way that libraries work in JavaScript, they allow you to do more with less coding. So essentially allowing you to work with coding quicker. So here we've got an example of a dynamic list. We're also going to be using CodePen.io to write our jQuery code, and as well as some JavaScript. And here we can see that we're updating a list dynamically. We can click on it to verify it's been clicked. We're also going to be looking at forms, how we can see some form data and some form information. So form vetting again, but within jQuery, so making it easier. And then here we've got our example here within CodePen. We're sending some form information. Also interacting and applying styling to HTML elements. So that was an example there. And then here's an example of our updated form where now we can click and we can apply it, highlight it, or we can remove it. And we can see as we're creating brand new items in the list, they get that same functionality where we can highlight and hide it. Also here, same thing where we're looking at more in depth what we can do with styling. The really neat thing with jQuery is that we can do a lot with just a little bit of code. So here I've got the ability to change the images dynamically when I click them, as well as that styling that we had looked at before. With jQuery, we also get the ability to do some animations. So this is just a fading animation where we can fade it in and out. We can also do some sliding up and down of elements within our HTML page. Also, with jQuery, one of the best things and one of my favorite things about jQuery is the ability to work with JSON data and AJAX. So this was just another example of how we're able to pull through that JSON data and make use of it within our website. So here we're actually querying over, we're picking up that information from that JSON file and outputting it within our JavaScript. A lot of functionality that we're going to be covering, and again, we're going to be going over at a step-by-step pace. So everything is going to be covered and building up to more complex concepts within coding. So starting out very simple and basic, so that you can build out those core foundations that you can build upon as we progress through the course. And also, I do recommend that you do try out the source code. Check it out and see what you can make it do, as one of the best ways to learn is to practice the code. So we've provided a lot of examples, and feel free to copy those and try those out for yourself within your own system.